Hi, we're back again. This next video is going to show you how to launch the installer. We're going to select the small deployment template, and then we're going to enter all the target hosts for the small deployment. Here are some rules of thumb whenever you launch the installer. Run the installer on its own VM. Do not run the installer on the same host where you're going to install the products. Use a separate host. If you need to, you can recover the VM later after you finish the cloud installation. Accept the default values in the installer unless you have a good reason to change them. And there will be some reasons later on that we'll explain. Do not mix and match IP addresses and host names during the product installation. You can either enter all IP addresses or host names or fully qualified host names, but do not mix and match them. Here we are inside the installer host. Before we get started, we need to run some sanity checks on the installer host. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to ping all of the target hosts to make sure that we can connect. So we're going to run through all the target hosts real quickly. To keep track of all of my target hosts, I maintain a wiki page that lists all the important installation information about it. You can keep the same information in a Word doc or in an Excel spreadsheet, but it's really helpful to keep a list of all of your target VMs. Then the next thing we're going to do is open up Windows Explorer and make sure that we can connect to the file systems of all the target hosts. If you cannot ping the target hosts or you cannot connect to their file systems, you're doomed right from the start. We can now start the installer. Download the installer zip files from the BMC Electronic Product Delivery site, otherwise known as EPD, and then unzip them into their applications and planner folders. I created a directory cleverly called CLM installer. Now you can do one of two things. You can either navigate down into the planner folder and then double click to set up executable, or you can open a command window, change directories into the planner folder, and then enter setup.cmd. The nice thing about starting the installer from the command line is you get to view various messages, including error messages if you need to. When the welcome page finishes displaying, click Next to continue. Review the license agreement, agree to the terms of the conditions, and then click Next. Review the installation prerequisites, indicate that you've read the prerequisites, and optionally you can also say do not display this panel for subsequent installations. Select it and then click Next. Review the location now where to install the planner. As a rule of thumb, I usually always accept the defaults in the installer unless I have really good reason to choose otherwise. But the best advice is just don't blindly accept the defaults. Adapt the installer to your particular environment. Click Next to continue. Review the preview and click Install. Now choose the directory for the network shell. I typically accept the defaults and click Next. This is the first time that we're launching the BMC Cloud Lifecycle Management installer, and this is a brand new environment. We're not upgrading, so we click or select Install and click Next. This is a new deployment, So we click Next to continue. We now have several choices here. We're going to select small deployment because we're going to distribute the CLM installation among 8 to 10 VMs. Click Next to continue. At this stage, we're going to select the control tier. We're not going to install any products on the workload tier, which is used mainly for high availability environments. Select control tier and click Next to continue. Now we're going to enter the target hosts for all the products that are used in the small deployment. You can enter IP addresses, host names, or fully qualified host names, but don't mix and match IP addresses and host names because you'll only confuse the installer. Here's another tip. I open up my etc host file and enter the information for all of my hosts. These settings in the host file override the DNS for a domain on that particular host. Again, modifying your host file causes your local machine only to look directly at the IP addresses that you specify here. When the deployment confirmation panel appears, carefully review the summary of the host settings. Make sure that the products are installed on the correct target hosts. Click Next to resume the installation. We're now ready to install our first product. We're going to install the AR System Server.